Do you need me?
Okay. Yeah, you want to do it? You go ahead.
Sure. This meeting is accessible to the people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. Large print materials are available upon advance request. If you would like either of these accommodation, please contact Mary Waldron, 583-1833 extension 202. That will be changing soon. The notice of discrimination, rights and protections to beneficiaries with regards to the federal Title VI non-discrimination protections and the state non-discrimination protections is posted in this meeting room and is available on the OCPC website. Please contact Mary Waldron, 508-583-1833 extension 202 for more information.
Okay, roll call.
Chairman Lee Hartman,
I am present.
Madam President Christine Joy,
Present.
Valerie Massard, President-elect.
How about president-elect?
President-elect. I started using
syllables.
I know, I saw that. You're going to make the email so much longer.
I started to use that. I was like, that sounded good. And for staff, Charlie Kilmer and Mary Waldron. And I do believe that Jean Marie Kent Joy said she was going to be joining us. So that is that. And then
Do you want to put something up on the screen? So
I do.
Just
Yep.
jump right in.
I'm going to do that 2 seconds, and it'll be, what I'm going to first do is bring up the, if I can get this. I'm going to bring up the proposed because I think that's just easier just to,
Yes.
well, screen, here we go. Okay. So the first thing is, just some, if I could, our bylaws are say annually, but many communities appoint.
Can you guys see that okay, or should she zoom in?
I can see.
Okay.
But since you say that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more.
Well, we said it was fun.
Well, I know. Let me just get it a little bit more. It won't hurt. There we go. Hi, Jean Marie. Thank you for joining. So we're just starting, Jean Marie. So there was just clarifications about the annually, but communities appoint for more than 1 year. So like in Stoughton, it says they're for 2-year term, and Whitman is an annual basis. So should we add language that says unless the town has terms set in their bylaws which will supersede? The other,
So
go ahead.
I was supposed to say, why can't you just say shall be appointed, period?
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Right. And then, some people are appointed year after year, and it just might make it easier. Or for a term that is like doesn't end until they say they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, that's my curse.
Yeah.
So we'll put just shall be appointed and let the
Yep.
communities determine it. So then the
Right.
appointed, so then this is the one Lee and I had a little bit conversation. So appointing authority, Duxbury emailed to say the planning board is going to appoint, but our bylaws just say appointing authority. Lee, you kind of taught me this from the last time we went through the bylaws, was that the communities are the ones who determine. The board of selectmen are really the appointing authority. So I just wanted to at least bring that up from your perspectives.
Yeah, to me, it's always the selectmen.
Yeah,
It is. I think they're the only ones that legitimately can appoint somebody to a committee.
I think that's true.
And it could be, and we're the actually select board, but selectmen's good enough.
I'll do
Yeah,
so.
but in Duxbury, what actually happens is the planning board picks somebody and tells the selectmen, and then they vote it, but they've lost track.
Yeah,
And-
so I
and
think just call it the selectmen. I think we're
Yeah.
unusual with the term select board, so selectmen.
So what I will then do is just as we make the changes to these bylaws today, I'll also, and they get approved by the council, I will also send a copy of them to the town and to the either the assistant or directly to the board of selectmen for them to have a communication about these changes. So this last one is just like another one, in our bylaws, it says must be a resident of the city or town, but in many cases, it is a department. And so my recommendation would be that we remove that and just leave it that the appointing authority make the appointing authority, whomever they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
So.
Yeah, the only other possible thing would be to say elected or appointed official. Must
Okay.
be an elected or an appointed official. I don't know, though, if we have other members who are residents and not elected or appointed. I'm not sure who else is on that board.
Um,
And you do have people who get ousted, like West Bridgewater. So he's probably not an elected or an appointed official.
that's correct.
Could be resident, elected, or appointed
Well-
official. You could list the three. I mean, but it does say resident, so I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think it just says. Yeah.
I would
just
almost be
delete the whole
inclined,
thing.
I
Just
think
take
we
it
should
out.
just delete the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that way, delete, okay, and I'm just gonna get rid of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I can resign. You can
Don't.
keep it.
No,
Oh, please.
I
don't.
know.
Term for
don't
life.
tempt me,
Valerie too,
right?
right? Valerie, you'd have to resign too, right?
yeah. Well, I live in Kingston, so I don't know.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that,
Oh, no, you're good then.
okay?
I didn't know you were in Kingston.
Yeah, 3 years now, just over the line.
No?
So-
Which line?
Every line you can think of, but Plymouth Town Line.
Okay,
So in section 4, we talk about representations, each member will be appointed, so this really kind of,
yeah,
will be appointed annually for a term beginning July 1st and ending June 30th. So this really kind of talks about what we just did, who may be planning,
Yes.
but must be resident. Okay, we dealt with that.
right.
Number 4, I think in the same section, signatory on bank accounts. There was a big discussion about adding the executive director. I shouldn't say adding executive director. Basically, because trying to find people who work full-time to show up and trying to get 2 signatures when we need to change something on the, it is a bit of a problem. We'll always have the 2 signatures. That will never go away. That's good checks and balances. But I think the idea that particularly Christine, when you and I met on a Saturday and looking to get adding names and taking names off and what have you, it was a bit of a challenge, and I did not have the authority to do that. So, so I think the idea would be, would there be a want to have the adding the executive director?
So that would be 3 signatures?
That's
Yes,
the idea.
but only 2 were required, but the authorized signature, the executive director. It's with the bank accounts, it's a little bit tricky. So some folks have been on it for a while I think Brenda's done a really nice job of cleaning that up.
But
But
just so you have a note here. So what's the wording of it now? That's not, what's the current wording?
Yep.
Are we gonna add this?
let me pull the other one up.
Because it seems like we will only want to have 2 signatures, which could be, and then what are is it the secretary, treasurer, or executive sec?
Yeah. Sorry, Lee, let me pull this back up here.
That would be my thought, is to say 2 signatures are needed of one of any of the following 3 people or positions.
This is in section 4. Meeting. Oh, here, maybe. I had named this. I don't know
bank
now.
accounts.
Yep, this is a final one, but I thought there was a section early on. Yeah, affected, that's wrong. Okay, yep, so president, treasurer, and secretary.
Yeah, I would think that you'd want to say it's 2 signatures from the following and then list the 3
Okay.
positions. And then that way
Okay.
you still only need 2 and not doing 3 signatures.
I'm just putting it up here, 2 signatures from the following. Okay. And,
And- And
okay,
who would that be? That's the treasurer, the secretary?
yep,
And the president.
it lists here, a president, treasurer, secretary, the checks, drafts, and any orders of payment shall be signed manually by 2 of such officers.
Yeah, so
then
we just
any-
want to add the executive director.
Okay.
I say that like I'm in charge. Everybody agree?
Agreed.
Agreed.
That checks, okay.
Does
All
it
right.
say any two of the following? Is it something like that?
Says any two of such officers, even though I'm not an officer, any two. Oh, well,
Following maybe would be better than
say that again?
changing it to,
Yeah,
The
any two of the
following.
following. and
Any
just
two of
delete-
the following and then
and
list them.
delete officers.
Okay, got it.
otherwise we'll all forget what we said tonight.
Well, that's why it's being recorded, so then I can kind of go back, because my memory by the time I'm done is any two of following. Okay,
And
Yeah.
it says it up above too.
it does. I'll get that fixed up there.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
idea, though, is any of the following, listing the president, secretary, treasurer, and the executive director.
Mhm.
So let me stop sharing this and let's get back to, we'll keep that open. And I know this probably was a better way of doing this, but right now. Okay. All right, so represented signature. Okay, section 7. Treasurer performed the duties or incident. Why did I put here? Oh, that was, sorry, it was under the treasurer section. That's why I apologize. In the treasurer, it also talks about, for clarification, is signature for executing grants. When needed, the executive may sign on the signature behalf only with written permission in advance. Okay, then we talked about bank account. It is noted the signatures of finance are one of the 3 officers listed above, but then this is where I'll add the language, because we talk about, we'll just name any signatures of finances will be 2 of any of the following, and I'll list it right there. Okay. All right.
So why does that say just one signature though? Because that one just says
Yeah.
find one of the
Oh.
3. Why is that one?
Isn't that
one?
interesting? I don't know. Because down below it says 2. And I know we need 2. This might be one thing that we may not have caught. It is definitely, each of the banks require, we have the 2 signatures.
Mhm.
So I will change this too. Because it goes back to what we just changed back in the notes.
Right,
It is noted
right.
that the signatures of the finance. So what I will make sure is this language here is the same that what we have down below. Which is here. There it is. All right. Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Then this number here represents the number of items. So, in our bylaws, I know we went through this last time. We talked
So
about. have it
I'm
be-
hearing some noise. I'm just gonna open my door to make sure everything's okay out in my
Okay.
office area. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Yep. So just in here, it's springtime. The annual meeting shall be held spring. I recommend that the annual meeting can be held as part of one of the regularly scheduled council meetings. It's a little bit vague in, I think this is where it says here, to meet. The annual meeting shall be held each spring. It is policy to conduct a meeting on behalf council. We may not need to change this. So what I have below is what we're changing here. This is the existing. I was raising this because we say springtime. So the council's required 4 times to meet, not every month. But we meet, that's the minimum of 4 times. The annual meeting shall be held each spring. We changed that last year because we wanted to give us some flexibility. Spring for us goes between April and June. That's our spring. It's policy of the general council to conduct a meeting, on the last Wednesday of each month. So maybe it may not, I think I was being a little picky
So
Yoon
ma-
about this. I
Well,
think,
especially after COVID, why can't it just say one, is that redundant? One annual meeting or an annual meeting will be held?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you just never know when
Yeah.
we might end up in October or.
Why do you have to
Okay.
nail it down? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what's the
Yeah.
point of the
Yeah,
spring
really.
meeting? Or the
It-
annual meeting?
The purpose is because as an organization, we have to meet in a very public way
Yeah, but
to,
why spring?
Right.
yeah, okay, so we
only-
can just
yeah.
eliminate
Don't
that,
say when, just don't say when.
right?
Yeah, and you just say an
Shall be
annual
held.
or the.
Shall be
annual
held,
meeting.
right, well, annual, I mean, right,
You almost have, you
something
want to say
vague.
year, every year, but that's kind of redundant. Or maybe you'd say a meeting will be held, no, at the annual
An
meeting.
annual meeting shall be held.
Goes back to the proficiency conversation.
Oh, God, I wanted to say each year. It just doesn't look right. I wanted to
Oh,
say
An
each
annual
year.
meeting, an annual meeting shall be held, period.
Period.
Each year. No,
E-
I know.
Uh,
I know.
No.
It looks wrong. It looks wrong.
To be determined by the council, the date to
Nah, I
be
just
determined by
think
the council?
No, just
No,
an
don't
annual
even-
meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think you need to be so wordy and, yeah.
So that's what, we'll just keep an annual meeting, because again, the accountability, it's just for the
right,
once a
Yeah.
year. The expo isn't an annual meeting, while we do other things, more networking than annual meeting, so, okay. That was for
Now,
terms. I was,
I'm sorry, do we need to define what an annual meeting is? Is there any, I mean, does that matter? What, because could you just
Does it
call
have to consist of a quorum or something like that, or?
Or I'm even just thinking an annual meeting is a little different than a regular meeting. And I'm wondering if you just need to define what that might be.
so to conduct a scheduled meeting, oh, that's never mind. The council shall establish rules, procedures, shall keep records.
And maybe, but maybe it's so simple as an annual meeting with delegates and town representatives. So it's clear that it's more than just the delegates, alternates, and town representatives. I'm just thinking, just so it's a little clearer that this is something a little bigger than just, the group of us sitting around a table. I'm up to any comments from anyone else.
I think it's a good suggestion.
So.
So
but
the only thing was that this June was going to be termed the annual meeting, and that's just going to be a regular council meeting though, right?
So maybe we don't need to mention it at all then.
Well. So my intention for the June meeting was to have it also be called our annual meeting. The annual meeting take place as part of a regular council meeting.
So then
Um,
we'll just go back to where we were then. I was just
Yeah.
asking you if it was something in your mind that should always be a little different and special, but again, that gives us the flexibility if we need to, in these times to just say, we have one that we call an annual meeting.
So if you ask Fred Gilmetti, he's been coming in this office for the last 5 months, asking me, are we gonna have an annual meeting? And he's looking for an annual meeting that he can sit and have a dinner and
right.
so, and to celebrate. So that is where I think I looking for a little bit more definitive, right? It's, from my perspective, it's the once a year business meeting that we have an annual report. We report out with the final budget. We acknowledge our officers as we transition. That's what I think an annual meeting is. And I think the timing of it, particularly before, we can say an annual meeting must be held before July 1st. I mean, and that way it accumulates, it's up for us as a staff to give a report, a cumulative report over the past year, and to acknowledge the new committees and the president, and nice, short, sweet, to the point, but no big dinner.
So again, you might want to just think about what you call, how, if you want to further define how that's a little
Okay.
different than a regular meeting.
I'm going to call it from the business meeting. I'm just
Business
Well, I
gonna,
think we've always just installed officers at that meeting.
And had
Yeah,
a
I think-
speaker. That's
And-
it.
You've had the election beforehand and then installed the officers and, right, kind of summed up all our activities, and then the speaker would tell us, where we're going or what, visions to the future or whatever, something like that.
so I think to your point too, I think that makes sense, Jean Marie. It just, again, cumulative of the fiscal year, of what has happened. Something that is, we have a written document, which we are going to have something ready for June. And while because of COVID, we really haven't been doing the formal installation, but certainly an acknowledgement of those officers who have served and the new officers coming in.
Right.
With and the expo still stays as the way of where we're going to have the food and camaraderie and the networking to really kind of show what is going on and what we've been doing for each of the communities. Christine?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a recap of the year, and talk about where we've been, talk about where we're heading, and then which is done through that annual report, and then install the officers.
Yep. Keep it
My
simple
only
like that.
concern is it might be problematic to say that in here with town representatives, because
Yeah.
if they don't
I-
show,
Yeah, I
then
think we get rid of that.
Yeah,
part,
if they don't-
What you
right.
said.
just an annual meeting shall be held, or an annual business meeting, however you want to call it. I mean, that's the purpose. It's just kind of to define what the purpose is, and it needs to just be short and sweet.
And it would be and I think it's, the annual business meeting shall be held. Yeah. And you could say install the officers
Officers.
and present the annual report.
Present the annual report, right.
That's the minimum.
Perfect.
That's it. Okay.
And
All
you
right.
don't want to put in free beer?
Mary will bring cookies.
Oh, okay, that's almost as good.
I didn't say what was in the
Almost.
cookies, but there will be cookies. Okay, thank you. That's helpful to go through that. The terms, I was mistaken. I said at the last meeting that the term begins July 1st. Our bylaws say the 1st of June.
Mhm.
This goes back to, I really think from the perspective I have, you close out the fiscal year, right? You still have a budget. People are still functioning. I've heard from a couple like Doug, who's going to be stepping down. He goes, no, Mary, my term ends at the end of June. So my comment would be that I do think it should begin. I heard that the last, I personally think for the sake of consistency, you start the new year with July 1st. So everybody's term begins July 1st.
Yep.
And I don't have second term. Oh yeah. So this is where I have highlighted here. This is the current. So the first
Yeah.
date, I would recommend that it be changed to July 1st.
I agree.
Mhm.
And
Makes sense.
leave the language or until their successors have been duly elected and qualified. I mean, that most likely is not going to happen. We're in a better queue now where we are, and we do it way in advance. So, okay. So that's the term. It says the terms will be posted on the website, but I'm not sure we have your terms on the website.
Yeah.
But we have a new website coming, so we will make sure we change that. So then if anybody's looking, say, hey, how long is Lee Hartman, appointed to? So it's endless. Term, you're never gonna go away.
Do not go away.
Ever.
I have a retirement app on my phone.
Oh, no. Was it like 3 years?
Well,
You're
yeah,
not,
it's
you're
less
not
than
older
3
than me.
years.
it's less than 3
Really?
years.
1 year.
How old
6
are you?
months.
I know
I'm
that's not an
60.
appropriate question for me to
I'm
ask.
60. I'm 60.
3
Wow.
years. Wow.
No, 1 year, 6 months is when I max out my pension. Now,
Wow.
whether I
Good
stay
for you,
longer or
Lee.
not,
Wow.
That's a different thing. And I have alimony till I'm 67, so I'll be doing something in between.
Yeah, you're right. So
Hmm.
I turned 62 this year and I'm not maxing out yet, but well, I maxed out, but I'm not going anywhere yet. Standing committees, and I think this part came from some of the discussion that you and I had, Christine, so we now have that finance audit committee, which I think it's so great. And I think I've appreciated it. I think the auditors appreciate it. I really wanted to add a legislative committee. We talked about that. The legislators are really important. Some of the staff are talking about, they want to talk to legislators about earmarks. I'm like, we can't do that on our own. We have to, it really would be great to make sure that we have that legislative piece. So I would recommend having a legislative committee be created. I always have on my wall, just the committee. So right now, the existing is executive committee, stays the same. Nominating committee, bylaw committee needs to say audit finance committee. Personnel committee has been really effective. The one I would get rid of, it says program development committee. I, Lee, it was when the former
yeah, I was
Kingston
on it.
Robert, I know it, I do find, that would be helpful to come up with ideas, but we get the ideas from
Yep,
when the meetings are run. What do people want to
Right.
talk about, right?
right.
So I would, so that really, there's personnel, program development, I would,
Yep,
calls on the chair function, evaluate program activities of vote call. You
yeah.
kind
and
of
we
do
have-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
A lot of it was trying to come up with new ideas and new
Yeah.
services to provide. But again, I think the sophistication of staff is a lot greater than it was when that committee was important. So I think it goes.
So two others that I have on my list here are equal employment officer. We do not have anybody. And then there was an OCPC representative to MARPA. So here's just a thought, and I can beg off of this if you want to have some further conversations. One of the things that I think what's missing is that Christine, as the chair, doesn't have really a listing of other chairs of other regional planning agencies that she can pick up the phone and say, hey, what are you guys doing on that executive director search? Or what are you doing on, coming up with a salary? You had to go through an executive director to get to the chair. I think that's kind of silly, but I've been working on two groups for staff, getting the fiscal managers like Brenda and the other fiscal managers to start talking to each other. How are they doing all those programs when they get the same money as us, right? So they've got to be doing something differently. And the other one has been GIS and getting Andrew to be talking to other GIS teams to see where their funding's coming from. And so I don't know, it's not here in the legislation, in the bylaws. But I think, Christy, maybe you can talk a little bit about that because you have no relationship with any other chair or the board of anybody else, right?
No, I do not. No, I mean, I used to know somebody who was with Serped, but he left. He was from OCPC. No, I don't.
And I don't know if that's something that you would find valuable, and it's something I could bring up to the other economic development, the other MARPA directors, but it's whether we can legislate it or not, I don't know, but I just think that there's something that could be, it's a different level, right? So
Yeah, and right, even to do the that request that I had for
Yeah.
information, I had to reach out to the executive directors for it, which is, a little awkward because I don't have relationships with any of these
Right.
people. So I think there should be something right for
I'll bring
a
some
member of the executive
Yep.
committee or one of the officers.
Yep. No, what I'll do is this, I will bring that up to the MARPA group and see if there is a way that the, a personal request from the chair and Val, as you are coming in and as an elect, how do I learn how to do some of this? I pick up the phone to my other executive directors. I mean, obviously there's Charlie, who's such a great resource, but so I only bring that up, whether it's something we want to put in our bylaws, probably not, but I think it's
Right.
a statement or an action that could be beneficial for the presidents or the chair of the boards of the councils. Charlie, your thoughts on that from your 25, 26 years here?
So this section is for board members to be on different subcommittees, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's not the staff level,
Right.
but your point about having the appointee to MARPA, that's where there'd be a representative where an alternate or delegate would attend like a MARPA annual meeting, plated dinner, just like the guest speaker. Jerry Dempsey was always the MARPA appointee from OCPC.
Okay.
So the only thing
So-
I'd also say, coming back to this with the legislative committee, it tends to be like the handful of us who are on all the committees, and I think we need to be careful about just not overusing the people who are
Yep.
accessible and creating, especially if we're going back into person too, it's going to really
Yeah.
affect our ability. So I would just be careful about how many committees we create and whether or not, Christine sits on every one of them and then says, I'm done. This is stupid.
Right. So I would, I think this legislative committee, I would gather staff who might have an interest as well. There's a whole lot of things, whether it's federal or state. I think a lot of the work gets promoted, and then at least legislatively where a review. I mean, you can also have your executive committee, which is further up. These are
Yeah,
standing
I'm not
committees.
saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying we have to be cognizant
Yep.
of the ability to support these by staff as well as by delegates
Yeah.
or alternates. And maybe that's one of the things we should look at is the alternates have such a little limited role. Maybe allowing some of the alternates to participate in the subcommittees can give them a little more sense of ownership to the council because they're not just showing up once in a while when one of us doesn't attend.
Mhm.
Yep. So I would say maybe even in standing committees to allow alternates to be, there's
Yep.
nothing in here that says that. So maybe if I'm hearing the recommendation is to allow delegates and alternates. to
And then that
be-
way, if you add one more committee, and we
Yep.
start to tap the resources of the alternates.
Um, And while I can tell you right now, just looking at this, this shall report annually to the council at a regular scheduled council meeting procedures at an annual meeting. These standing committees report when they have activities, to be honest with you, to then corral, I think it's too much work. I think as long as they stay active, once a year, they meet, they review. I would recommend
the-
from a structure to eliminate
Yeah,
this.
I would almost think if it said which are advisory
Okay.
to the council. And that would just so that that they're all just advisory only. The council has the other. So yeah, get rid of that report annually and just
Right,
where it says which instead of shall report,
it.
it just says
Yep.
which are advisory to the
Got it.
council.
Got it.
Right? There's nothing here in these groups that makes an independent decision.
No.
Right, that's
Yeah.
correct. It's all
Yeah.
just recommendations.
Okay. Oops, got two witches in there. Oop. Proceeding. Which the council at a regular meeting proceeding. Okay, I am just going to right there, eliminate all of that.
Right.
Yep.
Okay,
And it
That's
has a
it?
line like says Program Development Committee, second line down.
yeah, I struck that out.
No, but up in that paragraph, you're just adding.
Oh,
in the
got it.
references.
Yep. Okay. Okay. And then for legislative committee, I would, well, these are through the bylaws. I would say that, even just something on an annual basis review, legislative matters or priorities. Something really just simple at this point. See where it generates, and then over the year, see if that's, see if we need to fine tune that in any way.
Yeah, might want to put like a word in there like monitor,
Yeah, okay.
because you're going to be monitoring legislation. Because then whether you want to say state, federal, local, or just want to just say legislation.
I would say leave it as monitor legislative matters, and because it does involve all three levels, it could. I'm thinking about what Charlie, and really Charlie was a point person for the congressional offices in terms of when they were looking for the earmarks, without having that procedure, and then within MARPA, there is a legislative, MAPC has a legislative arm. I guess we pay MAPC to be the legislative matters for the regional planning agencies, and they do a great job, but sometimes they come and they ask for things in immediate, and I need us to be ahead of that. OCPC, we should come up with some matters of our importance.
Mhm.
And I think that just comes with, it should come as a matter of being organically as we meet, but it's not always that way. It just isn't, so we, when we identify the priorities and, so legislative committee, we can just say, this committee monitors legislative matters and reports to the council at council meetings.
I think
As
it's more than
needed.
Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah,
more
yeah,
than
as needed.
monitor though.
Um,
Because it could be also, I don't want to use the word lobbying, but you could also be, this
Yeah.
group could be also making recommendations for supporting, not just monitoring.
Monitor legislative matters and bring to the council's attention items for supporting. Yeah, I should have come up with some language and I didn't.
Yeah, that's okay. You can think about it. I'm
We
just
can tweak it.
Okay.
Googling it myself right now to see if anything shows up.
Or in reports to the council for their,
Most
Yeah.
like for review and for
Right,
review
for-
and consideration.
review and consideration, right?
And that can mean a lot of different things, so.
And nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Monitor legislative matters and bring to the council's attention items for review and consideration. Right?
Mhm.
I'd leave it at that, and then that's where we can bring in, legislators to come in to meet with us, to know what, just again, knowing when filing is, what needs to be done. And then that would give the opportunity for staff to bring through me, through Charlie, to this committee, items for earmarks or anything else that they would like to. My concern was, and it wasn't a huge concern, it's great to have the staff take the initiative. My concern is having staff go directly to legislators to ask for things without having the council involvement. That's my concern. And that's what they want. That's what a couple of them want to do. And I applaud for the initiative. But that, from your perspective, that should not be happening that way. And that means a little bit of planning. And since we meet once a month, it's an easy thing to bring up as a matter of items. No legislative, matters for this month, or here's our legislative matters. And then we do a report to the council in advance to say, here's our items, these are our recommendations. And then we can talk about, supporting like the legislation to be filed to allow for hybrid, right? That needs to have that executive branch overview, and not just from the staff.
Mhm.
So I'll leave this as is, and Lee, if you have better language, that would be great. But I'll make these, this is all that I had. I don't know if anybody had any other items, or Charlie, did you have anything else? Because then we'll bring these to council for next week's meeting for approval, not next week. One more.
Mhm.
Yep, thank you, the week after for their approval, so they can be implemented July 1st. We're getting there. That's it.
Okay.
I don't think I have any other matters on the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone else have anything to bring up? So I'm looking at at various chambers. The language is all very similar and boring, but I will send it to you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right,
second,
all right, it's unanimous. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you,
Thank you.
Val. Thank you,
Right.
Jean Marie.
Good
Thanks,
night.
Christine.
Good night.
Charlie.
Night.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too.